You're listening to CX Passport, the show about creating great customer experiences with a dash of travel talk. Each episode, we'll talk with our guests about great CX, travel, and just like the best journeys, explore new directions we never anticipated. I'm your host, Rick Denton. I believe the best meals are served outside and require a passport. Let's get going. 100 episodes. 100. Even as a host, I'm a bit stunned. When episodes 1, 2, and 3 released that first weekend in April 2021, I had no idea where this podcast would go. Its existence is only due to you, the wonderful group of CX Passport listeners, and the kindness and willingness of so many great guests to be on the show. I'm thankful to all past guests for allowing CX Passport to get to this point. With listeners and guests coming from all continents, except for Antarctica, but I still have hope. I have learned so much, heard some great stories, had some really hearty laughs as well, and I hope you, the listener, have too. So what to do for the 100th episode? Listeners, you deserve to get something special to celebrate. That's why my mind went right to asking today's guest if he'd be willing to join the show. You are in for a treat today as Mike Gathright, Senior Vice President, Head of Customer Experience at Hilton, shares a conversation with me today on CX Passport. So often when we're looking for models of what great customer experience looks like, we turn to the hospitality world. What does that mean, though? Why do we think that? And what does that mean for an industry that has been whipsawed, perhaps more than any other, by the COVID pandemic? I had the opportunity to work alongside Mike when I did some consulting work for Hilton several years ago. Right off the bat, I saw 3 key things in his leadership style and his organization. 1, a focus on employee experience. 2, a recognition that human and digital worlds of customer experience must come together to create an overall great customer experience. And 3, phrases like spreading the light and warmth of hospitality weren't just corporate purposes, they were personal ones. Mike embodies these 3, and I can't wait to get into these topics with him. To amplify point 1, music lovers will appreciate this. You know when you discover a band before everyone else does? Maybe you were given a demo tape, and I know that dates me with that reference. Or maybe you randomly saw them in a club with 100 or maybe just a couple dozen other people. When that band then gets big, you proudly wear your maybe worn out t-shirt from that first concert, showing everyone you were cool before everyone else discovered them. Well, if COVID is the stadium tour of work from home, Mike has the t-shirt from the garage band club days, well before the pandemic. An extremely high percentage of the contact center team was work from home. Employee experience mattered to the team then, continued to do so through the pandemic, and then especially as we emerge from it. It'll be good to get Mike's perspective on that extended journey. And as you'd expect from someone with that fantastic Hilton employee rate, Mike has plenty of stamps in his travel passport. I hope to dive into those stamps as well today. This is going to be a fun ride with Mike. Fasten your seatbelts, put those tray tables up as we are ready to take off. Mike, welcome to CX Passport.
Thanks, Rick. It's great to be here with you today. And congratulations on 100 episodes as well.
Well, thanks, Mike. I'm really, really pleased that you get to be a part of the 100th episode. This means something to me, and I hope it means something to you. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let's just start off, because I know you, but not everyone does. So just a bit of an overview. Would you share with the listeners a little bit about your role and organization?
Sure, Rick. So I lead the customer experience organization for Hilton, and our CX org is made up of not just our contact center teams, you referenced that in the opening, but also our digital teams. And we've got product managers and program managers, our experience design teams, all focused on an integrated customer experience across various channels at Hilton and the various touch points that our customers experience with us.
I think that unification is something I really want to talk about later. I love the brief overview, but I want to dive deeper into that because that was something that I mentioned in the intro that I found so just right. It just felt right. But I want to start with something else, actually, kind of outside of the Hilton world. You've had experience at other brands that are known for focusing on customer experience. So thinking about those experiences, I know they influenced who you are and what you do at Hilton today, but what's unique about that Hilton purpose that drew you to join Hilton and stay at Hilton?
Yeah, well, Rick, you mentioned a big part of that in your opening. You mentioned the light and warmth of hospitality. We're lucky to be a 100-year-old company, but one that still has the vision from our founder, Conrad Hilton, that he said from the beginning. which was to spread to fill the earth with the light and warmth of hospitality. And so for me, when I first, began to explore joining Hilton, that was a really important point for me. It was important for me to have a connection, personally to the purpose, the vision of the company. And as I began to explore and understand that more, really saw how that permeated throughout the organization. And then to be here, and you mentioned staying here, it's really that ability to connect to that purpose to everything we do. For those of us in the CX industry, it's sort of your dream, right? So many times you have companies that somewhere along the way decide that their vision is to do that. But when you can sit here 100 years later with a founder who started the company based on this vision, and to still be part of bringing that to life every day, and in ways that he could have never dreamed about 100 years ago, it just is fun and exciting, and keeps me motivated and energized every day.
I think what I want to ask you about there, and one that's just great, right? It's just, it's so right how you talked about from the beginning. Heck, it's an audio only podcast. And so people can't see the books that are behind me, but back there is Conrad Hilton's book. It's a little dog-eared, yellowed paperback. And it was interesting to see how that truly was a part of the story, the origin story from the absolute beginning. But what does it mean? So it's a phrase, but it's embodied in who you are and what the company is. What does it mean to you when we talk about the light and warmth of hospitality?
Yeah, it's a great question, Rick. And I think, for me, we've seen, there's a recent example that sort of comes to mind. We every year we have a CEO Light and Warmth of Hospitality Award,
Okay.
that goes to some of the top individuals across the company. And we had a lady, Kristiina Laur, within our organization
Yeah,
this year, and I think you worked with Kristiina.
I did. She's awesome.
That one, she is fantastic, and I said this in an internal call, that she personifies what we mean by light and warmth of hospitality, and and in that, with Kristiina, it's not just the way she leads her teams, but it's the way that she engages with her community. She lives in Estonia, with the Ukraine war and the refugee crisis.
Mm-hmm.
She found many Ukrainians showing up in her hometown, and so she opened up her home. She picked up additional apartments to put families in. And when you think about the core of light and warmth of hospitality, and what happens so often in travel, right, is all of these barriers that you have start to get broken down. And it really creates an opportunity to do something unique. And and Kristiina personified that in the work that she does every day with her teams, but also within her community. And I think for us, within Hilton, as we think about travel, you think about everything that's gone on over the last couple of years, and in our environment, people getting back together, breaking down, barriers of cultures and communities. And so, what are the things that we can do from a CX perspective that continue to make that easier, to make that simpler, to reduce friction in that? But ultimately, at the core of we, end up being in a people serving people business. And so, how do we do things that enable that to come to life in unique and different ways?
I'm so glad that Kristiina's story made it into the episode, because she is an amazing person. I actually didn't know that about what she supporting Ukrainian population that is coming across.
Yeah.
And so to see someone like Kristiina taking care of folks and applying not just what she does in her work life, but taking it into her non-work life.
This is your captain speaking. I want to thank you for listening to CX Passport today. We've now reached our cruising altitude, so I'll turn that seatbelt sign off. While you're getting comfortable, hit that follow or subscribe button on your favorite podcast app so you'll never miss an episode. Love it if you'd tell a friend about CX Passport, leave a review so others can discover the show as well. Now, sit back and enjoy the rest of the episode.
You talked about creating great customer experience. And I realize right now I would want to actually just spend the entire episode talking about warmth and light and all of that. But I've got some other things that I wanted to ask you. Creating that great customer experience, one of the things, and I've alluded to in the introduction, I've mentioned it a couple of times, that I found really fascinating is not just kind of conceptually, but organizationally, the human, that contact center and the digital side of the experience are woven together in the Hilton world, specifically with your organization. Why was it important for you to be a part of unifying that human and digital experience? And what benefits does that bring to the ultimate Hilton guest community in their guest experience?
Sure. Well, I mentioned a while ago, we're a people serving people business. At the end of the day, people are physically traveling, showing up in hotels, experiencing our product, if you will, through that those trip occasions. And yet at the same time, we know people are digitally savvy. And again, in the last 2 years, you've only seen that accelerate. Right through the pandemic, the digital acceleration from us, ordering groceries and food from our homes,
right?
Really caused a huge adoption there, and so we've spent some time over the last year or two where I think a lot of times you sit down and you go, okay, what's that human experience and how do I digitize it? And I think just with the foundation of life warmth of hospitality, we're constantly looking at that and saying, like, how do I invert that and go, what can I do to humanize the digital experience?
Mm-hmm.
And the contact center, for those that are in that space, know it is a abundant source of super valuable information of what you're both doing right as an organization. And so many of us in the contact center, and I've heard this on multiple of your previous podcasts, we tend to focus on the defects. What are the things that aren't going right so that we can solve them and find the root cause problems. And that's I think we're all kind of wired that way. But there's a lot of really valuable information, and our ability to sort of think about those channels in an integrated fashion, that a customer, they don't just sort of wake up one day and, well, I'm going to be analog today and I'm going to call the contact center, and tomorrow I'm going to be digital and I may use my phone to do something. Those things are very integrated, and we sort of weave back and forth in those experiences. And so again, for us, it was important to think about that journey in integrated fashion, think about how customers experience us, think about our core vision at the end and our purpose as a company in delivering great customer experiences, and how we can enable that, and allow customers not to experience our silos or organizational structures that can often happen by accident.
Yeah. And that right there is one of the things that I thought was so fascinating about having it inside of one organization, is at least you've gotten rid of one element of the silo. There may still be a technology reason why that this side doesn't understand that side when it comes to the experience or something like that. But at least organizationally, folks are, and I mean this both physically and virtually, sitting in the same room, solving the same challenge, whether it is, how can I create a great, warm and empathetic conversation with a guest who is driving on I-95 and just wants to know where the next Hampton Inn is so that they can turn in at 2:00 with their crying toddler in the back, create that empathetic experience, along with how can I make sure that the speedy traveler going through the airport has the ability to do what they want to with one thumb as they're engaging with the app.
That's right. I mean, I'll give you an example of how that came to life, and something that you may have even seen or experienced, yourself. There was a long problem that's existed in the hotel industry around connecting rooms, right? You mentioned the crying toddler. You may not want the toddler to be in a room by themselves, but if you've got small children, or exactly. And so again, something that we heard over and over again in our contact centers was customers calling and saying, I've booked 2 rooms. I want to make sure that they're next door to each other, or in a better case, I want to make sure that they're connecting. And we really started to think about that problem in integrated fashion, listening to that, and realized that through some technical work, we could enable the ability to confirm that at the time of booking. And so we've now, over this last year, launched Confirm Connecting Rooms by Hilton, and still the only hotel chain that could do that. And that's just, again, an example of where sort of listening to our customers, listening to what their needs were, understanding them from a human perspective, like why that's so important. And all of us with kids have sort of been there before. And then really going, okay, how can we bring this to life in a way that actually, creates a better experience, for the guest. And by the way, it creates a better experience for the hotel, because nothing's more frustrating than to think you've got, rooms side by side, and to arrive at the hotel and find that you're on opposite sides of the hotel. They're on different floors with young kids. And if you're a hotel and it's full and there's nothing you can do, they're also, as a team member at the front desk, feeling really upset that they can't meet the needs of the customer. So this is just one of those that creates satisfaction across the board.
We may talk, we're going to talk about employee experience from a remote work from home perspective, but in addition to both the customer being happier, but then you've just described the employee experience got better because they've been equipped with the tools through this digital, which was inspired by the learning from the employee. I can absolutely attest to it. Now I've got children who are at the time of this recording 20 and 17, so I don't care where their room is. In fact, I'd prefer it if they be somewhere else. We booked properties for our Hilton properties for our upcoming trip in Japan, and we did not select the connecting room option. But I thought the first time I saw that come out, I thought that is brilliant. I love the ad campaign too, where the parents are waving across the courtyard in the sketchy hotel. I love that whole journey from insights from the contact center into the product development into the ultimate employee experience. I absolutely love that. It shows the humanization of the digital options that can exist.
You've just given me our new product idea. The next thing we'll launch is confirmed you're nowhere near your kids. So that'll be the next product.
Can I get some sort of Easter egg in that product that somehow
there you go.
There's it's the Denton product or something like that,
exactly.
A little Easter egg just that we know. Oh, that's brilliant, Mike. I love that idea a lot, actually. Let me take us down a little turn here because I love travel. You love travel. You have access to phenomenal travel through Hilton. And I know it's just kind of a part of who you are, even if you weren't a part of Hilton. So there are great Hilton properties all over the globe. Feels like an ad for Hilton right now, but I do. I love the brand. I enjoy it. But I imagine that we could spend an entire podcast talking about your travels. So limit us here. But what are some of your most memorable experiences with travel inside of the Hilton brand?
Yeah, that's, it's a little bit of a dangerous question because it's sort of like asking me which one is my favorite child.
That's right.
I mean, everybody knows it's Abby, but don't tell Austin that that's the case. No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry, Austin.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's all good. I think I'm gonna go with a recent sort of memorable experience, and that way I can play safe of not picking a favorite. But this
I like it. Okay, we're safe.
Most recent. We recently opened Resorts World Las Vegas, which is a tri-branded hotel. It's got our Hilton product, our Conrad product, and our LXR Crockford's product that's there. And we just a month ago hosted 2,000 of our owners at this property. It's a 3,500 room, just a really, really amazing property. But in showcase there was a little bit of everything that sort of you want to come to life. Amazing entertainment and a really great intersection of really amazing, hospitable team members and some great technology. And so anytime you try to put an event on that's got a couple of thousand people, that's always a challenge. When you put an event on that has a couple of thousand hotel owners that are all experts in the space, that is an added challenge.
Felt a little pressure there. All right.
all experts in themselves, and the hotel did an amazing job of showcasing and highlighting everything that has made them a new great Hilton property. And so that was an experience that just recently, again, seeing the hospitality, seeing the integration of Phygital, where that physical and digital comes together, being able to celebrate with 2,000 plus of our owners was a really memorable experience.
Now, Mike, that property sounds incredibly fantastic, but sometimes travel isn't fantastic. Sometimes it can be a little bit rough. And so, especially, let's talk about maybe the airline. It's not the hotel, but it's the airline that causes a little bit of challenge for you, right? So let's take a little break in the first class lounge. Let's just enjoy that for a moment. And we're going to move quickly here and hopefully have a little bit of fun. What is a dream travel location from your past?
A dream travel location that I actually want to return to is Croatia. Had an opportunity to visit Croatia back in 2009. It's hard to believe it's been that long ago.
Goodness.
Relatively short trip, and it has been on my list to get back to and experience. I found that the culture, the food was just amazing, and I want to spend more time and explore more of Croatia. So it's an area that I love, but also want to get back to.
Man, Croatia does sound, several guests have mentioned Croatia, sometimes as just hoping to get there, but it does sound just absolutely fantastic. I hope to get there someday myself. Speaking of hoping to get somewhere, what is a dream travel location you've not been to yet?
Maldives. And this is both a dream Hilton. We've got amazing properties there as well as just dream locations. So I've got Amy and I's 25th wedding anniversary coming up next year. So maybe that's the time to try to pull the trigger on that trip.
Now, I don't know if you need to tell me later. I need to edit that part out if it's going to be a surprise. But if Amy's listening, then she'll know that the Maldives are on the list for the 25th anniversary.
Yeah, that's all good.
Don't take her anywhere short of that now, it sounds like. So
that's right.
What is a favorite thing to eat?
My favorite thing to eat, especially living in Texas, is probably Tex-Mex food. So just always hearty, filling. Good eating.
Now, Mike, I'm curious. Do you have a favorite Tex-Mex restaurant in the area?
I do, and if for those in the Dallas or especially the Frisco area, La Hacienda, is our family go-to. You can find us there many Friday nights, and also in the takeout line many weekends on a Sunday night, just pulling it, bringing it home.
Good place. Well, if listeners, if you're ever in Frisco, Texas, USA, head over to La Hacienda at Mike's recommendation. It is a good place. I can second that. What on the other side, though, is a thing your parents forced you to eat, but you hated as a kid?
Black-eyed peas.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know why, and I still can't eat them to this day. They taste like dirt to me. So yeah, black-eyed peas. And again, I grew up in the South where
that's right.
It was very common to grow vegetables and shelling peas and beans, and I actually just didn't really like many vegetables at all when I was a kid. But black-eyed peas, I could specifically remember my mom and dad would force me to eat them, and I would just gag through the whole setting.
I love this question. I love the reactions of people. Now, what's interesting to me is I loved black-eyed peas as a kid. I love them today. And for those that aren't familiar with some of the U.S. and kind of really Southern traditions, black-eyed peas are something you eat on New Year's Day for good luck. So I imagine that was a bit of torture for you every Jan 1.
It is, and it continues to be. And I usually find myself, getting one pea down, and I check the box that I'm going to have good luck for the year. Maybe a few more here and there, but yeah. Not my favorite.
That's fantastic, Mike. Now, with all your travels, what is one travel item, not including your phone, that you will not leave home without?
I always have my eye mask with me. A lot of international flights. I'm actually lucky that I can sleep pretty much anywhere. Manage that really by light and dark. And so if I'm in a place that I need to sleep and it's light outside, I can throw the eye mask on and be asleep pretty quickly.
Let's talk about that concert t-shirt that I mentioned. The Hilton team was way ahead of the trend when it came to work from home. So 2 questions have come to my mind when I think about that. Why was that approach important then? And by then, I mean pre-pandemic. How would you then describe the changes to employee experience and then by extension, customer experience as we've evolved into and through and hopefully out of the pandemic?
Yeah, I've been involved with, especially in the contact center, work at home for 10 plus years now. Long before pandemic, and in the beginning part of your question really got into that, trying to think about how to tap into different demographic in the contact center, and the traditional, especially in the contact center, and even hiring broadly, tends to be geographic. You're in a geographic location, you're trying to tap into areas within those geographies or groups within those geographies that you think match, but you're limited by what groups or people exist within that geography. And the recognition with work at home was you break down a lot of those barriers, and there's some really interesting demographics that you can tap into that you may have not been before. And some of the early ones that we began to, sort of recognize were, groups like disabled, communities that, may or may not have been able to physically get into an office, but, great employees. Military spouses was another really interesting, demographic where you think about military spouses that they may be, moving with their spouse on deployments, constantly having to find a job, here's a space where you can keep the same job and
Oh
it can
yeah.
travel around with you. So we just really found that, that there was a really demographic benefit of, enlarging your candidate pool, and some candidate pools that were, maybe largely untapped before. And that we saw, had great, customer experiences. Again, military spouses, and travel and hospitality really meshed well. Many of them were
Yeah.
constantly having to, travel, be in hotels, had experiences, and it again, it was just a really great match for us.
Yeah, I could see how I hadn't even thought of the military spouse being. We always talk about we want our employees, whatever it is, whether they're agents or anything, to be understanding and empathetic of the customer. And it can be hard if the customer is slightly different than you or what that might be. But I hadn't thought of the fact that the military spouse definitely knows what the traveler is experiencing and can
That's
be empathetic and sympathetic to what that they are going through. What's that look like? That makes a ton of sense for me, right? As far as why do it then? And I think it's interesting that it was a talent pool thing. It wasn't necessarily an employee engagement thing, although that certainly played into it, but a talent pool and access to great talent. As you think about taking that work from home experience into the pandemic where the rest of the world joined you on the concert tour, but then now that, again, we're not all the way out, but hopefully emerging from the pandemic, what does that look like from an employee experience?
Yeah, there's something that I think we learned pre-pandemic, and it's a great, sort of question, and something for a lot of your listeners to think about. We did recognize that just because you work at home, that doesn't mean that people don't want to have human interaction.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that they don't want to understand their peer group, and pre-pandemic, a lot of the, especially video technology, wasn't as prevalent or easily adopted as it is, post-pandemic. And so, at Hilton, for example, we created what we called Hilton Hometown Events. And we benefit by the fact that, we have, 7,000 properties around the globe in 122 countries. So
that's true.
Even if you just focus that in the US, it's not hard to find a property near a collection of team members. And so we started bringing our teams together, a couple times a year, so that they could interact with each other, learn from each other, but also to learn more about our brands and our hotels that they were supporting. And so for me, that was a lesson that we had to sort of learn in the early days of this, is that while work at home, provides a tremendous benefit, that there is still some opportunities to bring people together. And I think, as we went through the pandemic, that was something that we were benefited by already having a large team working at home, but that we're all sort of experiencing now. We talk about it in terms of hybrid world. What does that mean? But I think it's an important aspect of it, that there's a lot of benefits of virtual, and there's a lot of aspects of that are great from an employee engagement experience process. But you have to really think about, every company may be a little bit different on what that engagement looks like.
Yeah.
Make sure that your team members really can connect with each other in a way that's necessary for them.
I like that, and I having been there, was familiar with the hometown events, but love that recognition that just because I want to be at home, and for some, maybe I have to be at home, doesn't mean that I don't want to be around people and want to have that touch. And I like how you brought that into it. Let's stay in the contact center. You mentioned, and we talked about this as far as the insight that came up with connecting rooms. And that is, you have one of the best customer listening posts possible, that actual customer voice. And in some cases, the literal customer voice, where they talk, but then also how they chat, they email, and they just overall interact with you in the human and the digital space. So how kind of systematically are you leveraging that total voice of the customer program to then drive business results? It'd be one thing, okay, great, we got the VOC, but what do you do to drive the business results? What's that journey been like?
Yeah, journey is the right word. It is definitely a journey. I think you go back, years in the contact center space. I think you mentioned demo tapes at the beginning, right? The early days of call recordings, which it was literally a tape recorder, that you were recording calls on. Today, what is amazing with the technology available, we have an insane amount us at Hilton, but everybody that's that's listening within their company, of unstructured text, of information that's out there, of sentiment of the customers, what their likes and dislikes are, what's going well, what's not going well. And our journey is really how we tap into that more holistically. So we've got programs that today are allowing us to use some of that information and to be able to share it back with our business partners, share it back with product teams, share it back with our hotels. But we're on a journey to even improve on that, and how we really, it was on, just a discussion on it today, sort of the difference between sort of dashboarding that information and turning it into workflows. Like, how do you really take that information and make it actionable for people that can do something with it? And so that's where we'll be spending a lot of time in the next year or two, taking that unstructured data today and turning it into really actionable workflows for teams
I like that.
To help improve the guest experience.
I like that that's the focus, right? It clearly, even if you are still on that journey, you're finding those successes already. We talked about the connecting rooms, but I like what you said there of, okay, dashboard is great, but then what do we do with it? It's that moving from survey and score to listen and act. And so you're actually doing something with it in a systematic way. And I think there's phenomenal value. Well, of course, I think there's phenomenal, I'm quite biased that there's phenomenal value in that, but it's great to hear. And I think it's encouraging for folks, the listeners, to hear that, a brand like Hilton is on that journey as well. So wherever you are in that journey, be encouraged that it's okay that where you are, there's still growth to be had there. Right. Mike, I was thinking about one of the things that we're hearing right now, right? Sometimes you hear the big R word, you hear recession, sometimes just a downturn or whatever. Travel's been so whipsawed, right? We just got out of a pandemic, then there's revenge travel, and now there's the possibility of recession. And I'm not even necessarily speaking of Hilton specifically, but just in general, sometimes the contact center can be under threat in that environment. It can be viewed as a cost center instead of a customer insight center. So how do you, I think I'll use this word, how do you ensure that it's protected, or at least how do you ensure that the value of those customer insights are recognized as a company might go into an economic reality that involves a downturn?
Yeah, I think it's a really real risk that exists for contact centers and within organizations. And so I think it's important that they're holistically understood. So we've been talking about the value of data and information, right? If contact centers are simply seen as I pick up the phone, I answer questions, and I rapidly get to the next question.
Yeah.
And they're not seen as a source of insight back to the company as a whole. That's the first place to start, because you've got to change the narrative.
Yeah.
We're lucky and intentional at Hilton to make sure that the conversation is broader. And so we're doing exactly what you sort of implied there, is as we go into sort of recessionary time, we're leaning into this space, right? We know that more than ever, it's important that we understand our customers, that we understand their needs and wants, we understand the opportunities that are created, fight against the risks that you become less focused on customers. So to us right now, the contact center is as important as it's ever been. The data that's inside of that is as important as it's ever been. And we're really trying to lean into that. But ultimately, as you started with the question, to drive significant ROI, right? So as that experience that you can enhance at the hotel for us that ensures a guest will want to come back, is that a product that you can create that is necessary for travelers. To me, the most important starting point is if as a company, you're not having a conversation about the data and the insights that come from your contact center and how they can be a power and a force for your organization, you've got to start there. Because if you're trying to start from a position of we're just answering calls, then you're going to be sort of on your heels from the get-go.
My gosh, I would almost want to end the podcast right there. Like that's such a valuable, insightful nugget right there. And I love the way you said it, that idea of leaning into it, right? No, we're not backing away from our contact center or any other, customer oriented focus. We're heavily leaning into it because that's how we think we're going to win, regardless of what the macroeconomic indicators tell us, is leaning in like that. Let's talk about the future. Let's close out with the future. Mike, and I know that as a frequent Hilton guest, I have valued the brand's innovation, right? It's not new now, but the digital key was new. And it's so nice to know that my phone can manage the property if I left the key in the room or didn't even bother with the key because I went straight to the room. I even thought the brand linkage with Lysol and the clean stay was brilliant to give guests confidence. So innovation can come from digital, it can come from human, it can come from the physical. Talk to me about 23. What's next on the horizon for the Hilton Guest Experience? What am I about to get really excited about experiencing as a guest?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that are that are easy to sort of get excited about, and for us, what we continue to do is try to look at what are those broader trends that are out there, and so areas like payments.
Okay.
Is an area where I think we have a lot of runway ahead of us. You think about sort of the digital and nature of payments today, the ease of payments, and that's a space that we're leaning into a lot right now. And I think as we go through 23 and beyond, you'll start to really see transform across Hilton and the hotel experience. That whole digital space of sort of digital and physical meeting and in-room entertainment.
Oh, yeah.
Is another area that we're continuing to really grow and accelerate. Messaging, as basic as that sounds, is an area that we have an opportunity to make sure that it's that it's sort of everywhere, but it also becomes a really great listening post for real-time information. And so again, we talked about unstructured text earlier. You think about all the information that can exist within messaging, and the ability to connect that and to solve problems real time, or in hopefully in some cases before they even occur, is really powerful. So again, for us, it's really leaning into the things that customers are getting used to in their everyday life, making sure that they're just as easy and simple to do in their interactions with Hilton and their hotel stay, and ultimately making sure that when they're trying to decide where they want to stay, that it's Hilton for the stay.
I like it, Mike. I like it. I'm going to be very excited about those in 23. I love the idea of payments, but how you can solve all of that. And the messaging part's really intriguing to me. I love that I can message the staff at a hotel, but the idea of then discerning what's being messaged and understanding it real time and solving problems real time, or even if not real time, understanding the underlying themes and solving that for the future. Okay, I like that a lot. Mike, it's been a lot of fun, as I expected. I definitely want to go see the resorts world now. I'm excited about that. I really appreciated you helping start with the light and the warmth and just walking through what customer experience means to Hilton, what it means to you, and helping at least crystallize for me, and certainly for our listeners, what it means to really merge those digital and those physical worlds in a way that is delightful for the customer experience and for the guest experience. Mike, it's been a wonderful show. Thank you so much for being on the show. Folks wanted to learn a little bit more about you and the Hilton approach to customer experience. Where can they learn more?
Yeah, so feel free to follow Hilton and all of our channels, your favorite social channels. Encourage those of you that are on TikTok to follow Hilton there as well, but all of the other great social channels, and you can find me on LinkedIn.
That's great, Mike. Mike, again, thank you so much. I'll get all that in the show notes. It was a wonderful conversation today. Thank you for being on the 100th episode. On to the next 100, Mike. It's going to be phenomenal, but thank you for being on this show today.
That's right. Well, Rick, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure spending time with you. And again, congratulations on 100 shows, and look forward to 100 more.
Thanks for joining us this week on CX Passport. Make sure to visit our website, cxpassport.com, where you can hit subscribe so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, you can check out the rest of the EX for CX website. If you're looking to get real about customer experience, EX for CX is available to help you increase revenue by starting to listen to your customers and create great experiences for every customer, every time. Thanks for listening to CX Passport, and be sure to tune in for our next episode. Until next time, I'm Rick Denton, and I believe the best meals are served outside and require a passport.